What's going on, everybody? Back with another podcast, and today got a very special guest with me. Let's get into it.
A breath with Brefo.
So I'm here with Kiara. Kiara, how are you?
What's up? I'm good, Kev. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. I've been wanting to be on this podcast for a minute now.
Yes, you are a wonderful supporter of the podcast.
Yeah, subscriber 53, that's me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for supporting. And we talked about it. So, I'm glad that you're here on the podcast. So
Yes, thank you so much for having me, obviously.
Yes, of course. So I got to ask you, you just had Rico, which is your son, little man.
All right, not just had like a year ago,
A
but
year.
yes.
Okay. It's fairly new though.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So new to motherhood. I did my year around the sun just now with him.
Yes.
But man, I love that little dude.
So how is it? How is it being, a new mother? And
I mean, it's different. What can I say? I was just so used to just me and worrying about me and like my parents taking care of me.
Right.
So, it was like a little bucket of ice water at first, like getting used to the idea of like, oh, I'm going to be a mom now. Now I have to think of not just my life, another life that,
Right.
I'm impacting every day. So being a mom is great. What can I say? Like everybody always talks about like mom, like there's a love like no other. And it's so true. Like my son, like he's sick right now. So when I see that he's crying and I pick him up, like hugging him, just making him feel better, like he'll automatically stop. So like if that doesn't show you, like I can't put into words what it's like to be a mom and the love that another person feels for you. But it's just knowing that I'm here and my love makes everything feel better.
right.
It's the best, greatest feeling in the world.
He's totally dependent, and he's attached to your hip,
Oh yeah, he goes everywhere with me.
Yeah. So, being a single mom and
Not so single, but yes.
not so single. Okay, we're gonna get into that. So first, being a single mom, how was that? Like, what were some challenges that you faced?
Well, for me, it was really hard because, I was in a relationship during the time that I was pregnant, and I was the one who chose to leave the relationship. So it was more so like most single moms, I feel like it's something that they don't make that choice unless they do. But for me, it was like, oh man, like I decided to be a single mom. So it was hard, dealing with, all right, I'm in this stage, like I'm pregnant, and now I have to worry about like my relationship ending. There's just so many, like moms, we go through so many emotions, pregnant women, so many emotions. So it was like adding on top of that breakups. I was like, all right, this is too much for me. But like it definitely, I think God takes you through emotions in life. And, when you hit rock bottom, you know that this is like the very bottom and there's nowhere to go except for up.
Right.
So for me, I wouldn't change my experience for anything in the world. I always say that, obviously being a single mom was never part of the plan, but it's not me that makes the plan. So
Yeah. Do you feel like you were scared, like to be like, what, I got my baby boy with me, and I'm going through this, by myself right now. Were you like terrified?
No, not really, because I have the greatest support system, which is my family. So I've never truly felt alone with my child. I got a group of in-laws. We didn't even talk about how we met, but we know each other through Randall, who is my son's uncle, now godfather. So I've never felt truly alone with him. Being a single mom, it definitely comes with its pros and cons. Because before I was like, oh man, I have to take somebody else's consideration of like how I want to raise my kid. It's like nah. I'm the only one that matters here now. Type sort of not really the case, but that's just kind of how I see it. It's like, all right, if I'm in charge here. So But again, to answer your question, I've never felt alone. Never. Knock on wood. It's not wood, but
yeah. I mean, you definitely. I've seen it. You have a great support system. And I just asked because I know it's a lot, but seeing mothers that are single and have to deal with so much. Some are even you're going to school. I was going to say some are even going to school. Yeah. So you're going to school, right? You got your baby boy, you know, and working, all of that in one, right? You know, it's a lot.
Yeah,
you know?
so I definitely feel for the women who really, truly are alone in this world, because that couldn't have been me. I know that, like, for the sake of my mental health and, like, my child, like, truly, we're so good because of my family. Like, you know, you've always heard, oh, it takes a village. Truly, it takes a village, because without them, I mean, yes, I feel like I would be, like, what's I don't even know the word, but like those women who have to, because they have to wake up every day and be like, okay, my son, you know, he's relying on me. So that strength comes within, it comes from the Lord. So, you know, God's looking out for moms all the time. So for me, you know, I'm lucky that I have like more so like a system where I can fall back on, you know, if I'm feeling, all right, you know, I have my things. It's like, all right, you're on aunt duties or uncle duties. I'm gonna drop you off at the grandparents' house. So it's truly, I'm truly blessed to have the people in my life who are there to help me with my son. So
yeah, thank God for that.
Yeah. And Kevin, you gonna be on uncle duties too. So you and Andrea.
Andrea's up for it. She loves kids.
Yeah. When he's older, definitely you guys are gonna be like, all right, you know, you're off. Go take this kid to the park or something.
I'm with it. So you mentioned when I was like, you know, single mom, you said not so single. So yeah. So you're entering into the dating world now.
Ooh, shoot. Yeah, no. I've been in the dating world for, because I wasn't thinking like, you know, being a single mom, like, oh, you know what, like I'm looking for a man. Never that. But for me, when I was working, like I went back to work maybe 2 months after having my son, because I'm like, you know what, I mean, a part of me like regrets going back as soon as I did, just because, you know, I love truly just focusing solely on my son. You know, if I could have had it that way, then I know that, you know, that's the way that I would have preferred. Just me, him, no school, no work, no none of that. Right. But anyways, just going back to work and stuff like that, I met someone, again, like I was not even thinking, oh, it
wasn't in the plan.
No. I was not looking, wasn't thinking. There was no space in my...
So was there ever a thought that was like, okay, I want somebody to support me through this journey?
I want to say not initially, because again, like I went into work and then there was this dude, you know, he's irrelevant. Like, I don't know, but he did something for me that, you know, at the end of the day, we didn't have like a relationship per se. Like we were just kind of getting to know each other, but just, he was a father too. And, I didn't like the type of dad that he was. So I was like, I'm not interested in you like that, because you can't show up for your kids. Those are the people you need to really have their back for. But like I said, like he did something for me, because again, I was out of my plans to like, oh, you know, dating. I was not thinking. I was thinking, to be honest, that was gonna be on hold for me for a very long time, because I was like, all right, you're a single mom, you know, forget about relationships. So he made me, you know, realize that just because I'm a mom doesn't mean that I can't be a woman per se.
Like without everything is over kind of thing. Like you can't enjoy your life.
Yeah, because it's again, like goes back to mom guilt. A lot of moms feel guilt for many reasons. So I just felt like, oh man, like having a boyfriend, I should be focusing on my son. So, you know, that's the only good that he did. I'm not spitting on him, but you know.
Mom guilt. I never heard of that.
Mom guilt? Yeah, no. Mom guilt for everything. Like the first time, and mommy shamed. Now, moms have a lot to say about, you know, like how other moms choose to raise their kid. Right. I don't like to judge people. I mean, I probably have some consciously. I'm like, you know, you probably shouldn't do that.
Of course, we all have.
Yeah. But in the mom community, like you feel something strong. I'll tell you about this one time, you know, random thought. But
no, say it.
My kid, you know, kids like, you shouldn't know anything about kids. But anyways,
not yet.
Newborns, they like poop on everything. So, you know, as a mom to bring change of clothes. So I was out that day with my son. It was like one of the first outings that I had, like being, you know, postpartum and everything. And my son already crapped on the clothes that I had brought for him. So I had nothing else left to do. Instead, like, I had him naked in the store. Like, he was just in a diaper. It was a summertime, granted, so I wasn't thinking, I had, like, his little blanket, but I still kind of felt like nobody came up to me like, oh, you're a bad mom because your son's naked.
Right.
But I felt some type of way. I'm like, oh, my gosh, like, I'm a terrible mom because now, people are looking and like, why does she have her kid naked? So I was like, oh my God, I feel it. It's been a long time since I felt that way, just because like I know that people aren't doing it, or maybe some are, doesn't matter, but like just brush it off, because obviously I know that I'm not a bad mom because I had packed and stuff happens in life, and that's it. So
did you feel like it was probably just all in your head?
Of course. Yeah, because like I said, nobody came up to me and said, oh, you're such a terrible mom. Like, why is your son naked? People do come up to you and say some things, but I don't think it comes from like a place of like judgment. It's more so like, I wouldn't do it this way.
Yeah, it's like I've noticed that, like if women are together and, like a woman is holding another woman's son, right? And they're like, she's like talking about him and stuff. She'll low key like say a like smart remark or like
the jab is like, hey, I would do this differently.
Right, like something slick like that. And I feel like, I don't know, like I pick up on it sometimes when I hear it. I'm like, oh, okay.
For sure. And me especially, like that's another like mom guilt moment for me is like in-laws and my own mom telling me like, oh, do it this way. So I'm like trusting that. Like, oh, they've done this longer than I have. Like, I'm just a new mom.
Oh,
so
right.
I feel guilty for not accepting their advice sometimes. It's like they know better than me. But at the end of the day, this is my kid, and this is a new experience for me. And, I'm just trying to do the best that I can and raise my son the way that I want him to be raised.
Yeah, and just like what you said, I feel like you can't raise your child the way that your parents raised you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a different generation, right? Things are different. You can't kind of do the same thing because it's not gonna. And I'm just different.
Like, it's not the same. Like, we're not like my parents. They had 5 kids. And they had a different relationship. They were in marriage. They kind of had like that's something totally separate. As a single mom, just one kid, you really, there's obviously similarities. There's kids, there's parents, but it's a completely different situation for certain things.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna ask, like, did you ever feel like you were ready? But nobody's ever ready for things like that.
Actually,
right?
I absolutely. Yes and no. Like, looking back, because like before I had my son, I like that's all I ever talked about. I was like, oh, when we have kids,
right.
all the time, because I wanted to make sure like that's something that was like really important to me, because I grew up with like divorced parents, so I wanted to make sure that that certain problems and like certain different ways of thinking, because parents that they're not on the same page with raising their kids and handling things the same way. So I wanted to make sure that the person that I did decide to have kids with, that we saw things kind of in a similar way, like when it came to disciplining kids, schooling, education, religion, all that type of stuff. I wanted to make sure that all the fundamentals were good. So avoid that problem.
And that's very important.
Yeah,
that's very important. Because like you said, like let's just put in, I don't want to call it religion, but we'll just throw that, like, if you believe in something, if you believe in Christianity and then somebody else believes in something different, that can be a clash. I remember I was watching a show. I think it was like 90 Day Fiance. I was just,
oh my.
it's not like I'm like, okay, oh my gosh, I can't wait for 90 Day Fiance to come out. No, like, I was just glancing through the channels, and then I stumbled on it, and it was a Christian woman. And she was breaking up with the guy because he was an atheist. And she brought him over the house, and man,
you know what? It wasn't that. It was that box one, like where Love is Blind. I watched that.
Yeah, Love is Blind. It's not 90 Days. Yes.
And I watched that, and honestly, there's certain things that, that was such a. You shouldn't be dating someone who doesn't, at the end of the day, see life the same. You know what? We'll talk about that later. You continue your thought.
No, go ahead. I want you to share. Go ahead. You said you shouldn't be dating somebody that doesn't what?
No, like who doesn't have like your core. Like, there's certain things that if you don't see life the same way, your relationship's not gonna work out. To be honest, like. somebody told me something along the lines of life is not looking at one another. It's like looking down the same path, basically, just leading to say that if you guys are going in opposite directions, say for instance, this is just like a regular example, that the way that you like to recreate is like you like to be a homebody. You're not, I know you're not, but like somebody that's home versus somebody who wants to be like out partying all the time. You know, in the beginning, you're probably gonna be like, oh shoot, now I'm part of their world. But at the end of the day, like if you don't, that's not the way that you want to spend the rest of your life,
right?
Kind of, sort of, you know, just that's like a little basic example. But yeah, no, you have to kind of be on the same path in life. Right. I think in order to have like a successful relationship, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, right? But
right.
I just want to date somebody who something so big as being a Christian, dating somebody who's an atheist. Like, how does that work out? How? Why? Is that something you're entertaining? Yeah. Like,
it's tough. You know, when I was watching the show, what I didn't like though was the way that the family, you know, looked at him when he came in and he was like, oh, you know, I'm not big in Christianity and this and that. But like, I feel like if you weren't brought up in a Christian home, right? Just think about it like this. Put yourself out of the box real quick. You know, if you didn't have Christian parents or a Christian foundation, right? And let's say you were brought up differently, right? And then somebody put you in that living room right there, right? And you had to deal with that. That would be very, you know, you'd be like, whoa, what's going on, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know, I feel like they should have done it in love, right? The way that they talk to him and ask him, you know, like, oh, you're an atheist, this and that, you know? And I feel like that kind of threw things off too, because even the girl, the way that she was like, oh, you're not a Christian? No, I can't, you know, like, it's kind of like you got to do it in love, right? Because when you do it that way, he's a soul, right? God loves him.
Damn, Kevin, God's tell me how you would have done it then. Because honestly, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like Christians sometimes, like people like they whack each other with Christianity and be like, oh, you know, you're not a good Christian for this and that. So it's really hard because if I was in that position, again, like the family is focusing on like, I know this isn't going to work because my daughter is a devout Christian. Right. So I know what you're talking about. It's like, oh, they're shaming them. But I feel like if you take a step back and you realize what's actually happening is they're concerned because they know that their daughter, like, this isn't going to work for her.
And they're not doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything. I agree in that sense that it's not going to work out. In the long run, they're going to have arguments, right? If they have kids and she wants to bring them to church, right? And then he doesn't, it's going to cause an argument. So they're not wrong in that sense. It's just the delivery. Yeah. That was very wrong. You know, like if Jesus was in that living room, right? How would he handle it? You know, Jesus stayed the house in, I think it was Zacchaeus or
Zacharias,
I think. Zacchaeus, the one that was in the tree. In the Bible.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Jesus was like, tonight I'm staying at your house, right? And literally he changed. He became a new man after spending time with Jesus, you know, and that's what should be with when Christians spend time with people that don't know the Lord. You know, things should be different, right? But usually when Christians hang out with people that are not Christians, right? Bad company corrupts good morals. You become more influenced by their behavior than you actually influencing them in a positive way, in a godly manner. You know, so if Jesus was in that living room, how do you think Jesus would deal with that man?
I mean, it's Jesus. Jesus, we can't really compare ourselves to Jesus, but like, again, like he's coming from a place of love and, you know, wanting, because when Jesus hung out with the people that he hung out with, they were sinners, you know, I don't want to say that, but yeah.
See, people say Jesus hung out with sinners. You know what's crazy?
It's because Jesus didn't change though, hanging out with them, and they did.
But think about this sentence. Jesus didn't hang out with sinners. Sinners hung out with Jesus.
Yo, that's what's up. Now that you're saying that, I'm pretty sure I just saw that on your Instagram the other day or something like that. Yeah.
That's a big difference. You know, like they want to be around you. That means there's something that's, you know, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but in the sense of, you know, just that, you know, I'm not attacking the family nor am I attacking the guy at all. It's just, you know, sometimes the delivery of us, you know, believers, some Christians, you know.
Yeah.
We have to understand, like me, I always think like I wasn't always, you know, faithful to the Lord or obedient to the Lord. I wasn't always a Christian. I would go to church and sleep in the back, so I didn't take Christianity serious. I didn't take I'm not going to say Christianity. I didn't take my relationship with the Lord seriously. Right. And I still fall short of that today.
Yeah.
Right?
Like all of us do.
Yeah. But in the sense of like, I always keep that in the back of my head. Like there was a point that I didn't know the Lord and I was, wilding. And
but it's really hard to come, like imagine, like again, like you're saying, what would Jesus do? But
right.
it also like who's accepting it. In order for you to, really take in an experience, you have to be willing to accept it. And this man, he's grown.
Was he willing or was he very denial of it?
I don't remember if he was or he wasn't, but still like.
See, that's how I feel like it comes back to the delivery. Because you could open somebody's heart but it's the delivery of how you do it. Because you could shut somebody out and they'll be like, oh, no, forget it.
I don't know. I'm speaking in like personal experience. Because for me.
And I agree, though. I agree with you have to be with somebody that's on the same page. Mm-hmm. You have to. That I completely agree with. Because, even if it's not, Christianity, right? Anything else, right? That you believe in very strongly and the other person doesn't, right? You guys will clash heads. It will happen. So I definitely totally agree with that,
Yeah, it really has to be like middle grounds and everything. Like, what do they say? Too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So same thing, just being balanced in life and like accepting and like trying to see both sides of the coin too. It's like, all right, how... Like, again, if she was, like, a devout Christian, again, this is not coming from a place of judgment, but, like, maybe, this was her opportunity to bring someone to the Lord. It's like being a disciple and, like, recruiting people. But
recruiting. Come to the army.
Don't.
Oh, speaking of that, you serve. Yes.
Stop that, all right?
I always be forgetting. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a fun fact about Kiara here.
Yeah, Army National Guard.
Yes, there you go. So back to the topic of dating. You said you saw somebody right at a job place, and then you weren't even looking. But how do you feel now, currently, right now? You're officially with somebody?
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that feel like right now that you said you didn't expect it, but
I wasn't looking for it, like. It definitely gets really complicated being a parent. I mean, things are really simple, but we as humans, we make everything complicated, right? Yeah. So, again, I wasn't looking for someone, and this is like in the past, because, after like I had that encounter with that guy, because I was still kind of seeing him when I met who is currently my boyfriend now. Mm-hmm. I lost my train of thought. Talking about relationships.
Yeah, I do.
Bring me back.
Bring me back. Yeah, I got you. So I wanna, because you're talking about the relationship right now, right? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it was easy because I don't know if he met Rico yet, little man.
Oh yeah, he has.
Okay. Do you feel like that was hard? Like, because one thing is I had a coworker before, and He has a daughter, and he stays with the daughter. He lives with her, right? And one thing he said to me, he was like, man, I can't just bring any girl around my daughter, like, because he feels like, okay, if it doesn't work out, right? He's like, my daughter would, be like, okay, what's going on with this person? And then I bring somebody else, and then this person. So was it like, is that something that you thought about?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just remind me of that movie, Think Like a Man. It's like introducing people. And like your coworker said, not just anybody. So if it's somebody who, like, what is your idea of like having a relationship with gifts? If this is something that you don't see a future with, no business introducing to your kids, for sure. Definitely not. But, for me, it wasn't hard at all, because like when it came to meeting my son, because he's so little, he was a few months old. So like he's not gonna know any better. He's not gonna remember. Exactly. He's not gonna know like, oh, my mom. But yeah, definitely don't be bringing people who you not sure about your life around your kids. I don't know how old his daughter is, but she's probably older if she's realizing like, oh, what happened to so and so. Yeah. But I think it is important to again bring them, you know, because now, like, what if you really like this person, they like you, and now the relationship with your kids like, you know, I don't like you, or vice versa, like the person's like feeling weird around the kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something to consider, like taking a long time to introduce that. I don't know what's the right time frame for me. What made it difficult was, you know, thinking of like my son's father, because we had that conversation too, which is like, if we had separated, because in my head, like, you know, when I was in the relationship, like I had already started like checking out, because I realized, all right, this isn't right for me. This isn't gonna work for me. Like, I don't want my kid, you know, forming, like, I don't doubt that we loved each other, but loving each other is not always enough in a relationship, especially now that you're bringing a kid in this world. So I was thinking, all right, like, is this something, like a place where I want my son to grow up, like, you know, realize like this is his forming his opinion on love and all that type of stuff. So so I was worried about, you know, thinking like, if I was his father, how would I feel that, you know, like my son is being introduced to somebody. So definitely that made it complicated for me, because it wasn't so much like, oh, you know, like I liked that person and I saw something and like we were gonna be able to build something together. So it wasn't complicated in that aspect. It was more so taking consideration for the other person. Yeah, so.
Oh, man. Listen, you said something. You said love is not enough. We're going to talk about that. We're going to take a break and we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. And you mentioned love is not enough. I don't want to get into that. What do you
All right, so what I mean by love isn't enough, like love is not a reason just to stay with someone, because the way that I see it, I'm capable of like working out with anybody, you know, because you should have love for everyone, right? You know, so it's just that it's like love cannot be the only thing going in a relationship. Like, you know, in order to have a successful relationship, you need to have like a good foundation. You know, respect comes with love as well. You know, if you're not respecting your partner, you know, you're cheating or something, or you guys are just not being very nice to each other, you know, you can't be like, all right, but at the end of the day, I love you and I don't want to give up on you. It's like, maybe realize that you guys are doing more harm than good. You know, there's always a way of coming back from that. But definitely, I just think that loving someone is not a reason, like a good enough reason to just want to stay with someone forever. Like, it has to be a relationship that actually works for the both of you. Yeah,
I agree. Do you feel like that is something that's going on in relationships today? Like, how do you view relationships today?
Man, the dating world. I'm an outsider when it comes to this, just because in today's climate, people don't really date to form, like, you know, what do they say? Like, traditional values, like, you know, you don't really find people that are like, oh, you know, I want to kind of get married. Or at least this is what I'm thinking. Like, I'm thinking a lot of people are like dating to have fun. You know, they're really interested in like just like the physical aspect, the lust and all that stuff. And that's what I'm saying. Like, relationship today, like where females are like, all right, they're comfortable with having casual relationships. And
what do you mean by casual relationships?
They're not dating with a purpose.
Okay.
They're dating, you know, like, all right, you know, let's, like, why do people date nowadays? You know, people, like, when I think of dating, I'm dating to build a relationship with someone, someone that I see a future with. But, like, nowadays, you know, there's so many things. It's like people date to just be in a relationship. Like, people don't want to be by themselves. You know, they're dating because, again, it's like socially. Like, for my sister is a year older than me. She's like 20. She just turned 23. And people are always asking, like, why does your sister not have a boyfriend? And I'm like, bro, like, well, get off my sister's case. Like,
she's chilling.
She's good. She doesn't want, like, boys are a lot of, not necessarily like a lot of drama, but, you know, again, like going back to like experiences are not the same. Like me, I've chosen to date older guys, whereas, you know, nowadays, like the group of girls that are my age, they're most likely dating guys in their age range, and those guys, you know, they're not taking like dating like, oh, you know what, I'm looking for a wife. I'm just looking to have fun. This is like the climate that they put out. So
that's why you're dating, you're focused on older guys, because you feel as though guys in your age group are just not taking dating seriously.
I mean, now that's part of it, yes, but it's more so now, you know, being a mom, like I would never date a 21-year-old, because like we're not in the same life arena. You know, they're focused on going to school, starting their life. You know, I've kind of like, you know, I've been there, done that type stuff. You know,
so what about the 21-year-olds that are, you know, their mindset is, you know, thinking things like,
hey man, I'm not a guy, you cannot ask me, but perception is reality, right? So the way that I'm seeing is they're focused on, oh, you know what, like, this is not the time for me to have a relationship. Like when I get to my 27s, you know, later in my 20s, I'll figure out, you know, actually starting a family, because, you know, that's like more age appropriate. Like 21-year-olds in today and age, they're taught that, you know, your life, like, you know, 20 is too young to start that. Like people always look down on people that get married young or have kids young. Well, not everybody, but I'm just saying, like,
majority of people.
Yeah, like getting like in a serious relationship, people are like advised, especially for guys. They're like, no, you should go out and have fun. That's what I'm talking about.
My
like
science teacher in you reminded me. My science teacher in middle school, Mr. Hernandez, I believe that was his name. He told me, he was like, "Hey Kev, in your 20s, those are your golden days.
Yeah,
he's like, enjoy your 20s and don't get married until you're like in your 30s."
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And that's, you know, he's an older guy, so that's something that I'm sure he heard in his generation, right? And it's still something that guys today still believe in. You know, I'm gonna enjoy my 20s. I'm not even gonna think about marriage right now. You know, so yeah.
I don't know. See, look, when I think of that, like, because they say that for girls too, like 20s are your time to like be crazy, wild. And I don't know. It's just like this, I don't even know how to describe it, but like there's certain ideas that people have like in age ranges. Like if you're 30s or like even in your 40s still dating, people are gonna look at you like, oh, you should be married. Like, you know, everybody has like a certain timeline, and everybody's like, okay, you're not abiding by the timeline. 20s is time to have fun. 30, set down and kids. If you're not married by 40, like, what are you doing? You're gonna be alone for the rest of your life, you know, especially for women. Like, you know, if you're in your 30s, no kids, not married, even in today's society where they're telling women like, all right, you can go have fun, you know, do this, but be married by the time you're 30, have all your kids, like 40, you're done. So it's just this timeline. I feel like, you know, just if everybody is like aware of like what's happening, it's like that fear-based thinking that, you know, after your 20s you're done, like your time to have fun is over. It's not the case, man. Like, you know, you are the captain of your own life decisions. So, you know, if you think that, like, why do people even think that like 20s or even being married that you can't have fun? Like, what does that mean? Do people think that like when you're married, like life is over for you? I don't get it. So I don't know. It's
some
just
people,
that
some
way of
people,
thinking.
yeah, like it's, and also back to like, you know, the timeline. Some people put expectations on themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, I expect to be here at this, and you know that's fine. But sometimes it might not be that way because life, you know.
Yeah.
Life happens.
The only thing that I have a problem with, I should say, is, do you think that is that the timeline that you decided, or something that, you know, like growing up? Because I know for me, I always said I wanted to be a young mom. So again, it was more so like the climate that I lived in too. So I want to know that, are like people thinking, oh, like, are you setting like these time restrictions for yourself because you actually like, how do you even come to terms with like something like, oh, you know what this is, like, how do you decide that? I think it's more so like our environment, you know, making us think that, oh, this is something I came up on my own. And that's like the problem. It's like, man, like, take a second to realize that this is really not you. It's what you're expecting society to expect from you. And who's really society? Like, who's really coming at your door and shaming you, be like, you should be married? Nobody. It's just in our heads again. Like, and just step out of that.
I feel like social media plays a big part in that, you know, because people we're with, people we grew up with, people that, you know, are in our community.
Constant comparison.
Exactly. We see that and we're like, man, like, I should be married at this point, you know, I should be this, you know, but like, no, man, like, you have your life. Everybody has their own, right? So I feel like social media does play a big role in that, you know, a big part.
And definitely, like, I always say this for everything, there's pros and cons to everything. Like, you know, if you're looking at someone like, oh, shoot, like, they're married with kids, like, they're so lucky. But then you can think of the other side. It's like, all right, you know, I still, you know, I'm focusing on me right now. Like, there's a time and a place. Like, you go through different seasons in life. If you're wearing a bikini in the winter, people are gonna look at you funny, right? So just really enjoying the season that you're in and not trying to like fast forward, be like, oh man, I wish it was winter, pulling out your winter coat in the summer. You're gonna look ridiculous, right? So everybody hit that pause button and just like enjoy now. Enjoy everything that you have, because you know once it's over, it's over. So you know.
And I feel like what you're saying, like there's advantages. There's definitely advantages of being single. You get to focus on yourself, you know, and, you know, develop your self character, all that. And, you know, when you're married, you have to focus
more responsibility.
Exactly. You got to, you know, focus on your significant other. And, you know, if you have kids, you have to, you know, everything is catered to them. Right. So, yeah, everything has its
pros and cons.
Pros and cons. Exactly. So with, dating and all that, what is the best advice that you've gotten?
Best advice
that you can even give to somebody that's listening?
Man, like the biggest thing, like this goes for all areas of life, is to really know who you are before you get into a relationship. You can't jump into a relationship if you don't know what half of the whole you are, right? So, you know, and yeah, so knowing who you are and like loving yourself and just being like content, and also being in a relationship with somebody who's at that same level. Because if you're confident and you're good and you know yourself, but you get into a relationship with someone who's maybe not on the same scale, that, you know, they're a little bit more self-conscious and they don't know themselves that well, it can create conflict again, because now there's that sense of balance. Because, you know, now that I'm good, you know, I'm good, I know who I am, I'm sure of the person I am, I walk into this world and my partner is not, they're probably thinking like, oh, she's doing something she's not supposed to, because they're like in that mindset of like, oh shoot, you know, I'm maybe not good enough, or this, that, and third, you know. So, you know, making sure you're picking someone who's gonna compliment you as well. So not compliment like, oh, shoot, you look good. It's like you guys go like
blend.
Like there's balance in relationship. You need that. So I think that's like the best advice. And if you actually like, because, you know, not everybody, you know, you say like, oh yeah, I know who I am, you know, I know what I want, like I'm confident, but if you're not like 100%, it'll lead to conflicts in relationships. That's true. So I feel like with that, like that, just having a really good foundation. So that's part of it. So, you know,
that's good. Do you what are some mistakes that you've made? Like in even in the process of all of that?
I think like just my advice just now, not like, because I got into a really serious relationship when I was really young. Because for me, I grew up thinking that, you know, when you're supposed to be with like one person for the rest of your life. It's like, all right, you know, first boyfriend, because, you know, I saw that model in my parents, my grandparents. It's like, okay, I met them at 6, and the time we were 17, we started dating, we were 17, and we've been married ever since type stuff. So I, you know, subconsciously I was like, okay, I want that too. And not that I didn't want that, like, you know, it's a very beautiful thing for people, you know, if of course that relationship is right for you. Not everybody's gonna meet the first person and be like, okay, you know, you're my person. So for me, it was going into a serious relationship with that way of thinking, and thinking, all right, now I have to accept all your flaws for the way that, like, no. You know, in relationship, there's, what do you call it? Compromise?
Yeah, compromise,
and just kind of, you know, growing together, and not realizing that, you know, I'm always, you know, you take on certain roles in relationships too.
That's true.
Like, oh, you know, my girlfriend, she's the jealous one, you know, from like stuff of insecurity. So that kind of, you're not giving that person space to grow. It's like, all right, I'm putting you in a box, and now, you know, you're not realizing that there's stuff outside that box.
Right.
So it was just being in a serious relationship and not knowing who I was so much, not having enough life experience to be like, all right, you know, or just realizing that, okay, you know what, this may not be, you know, like, again, because I'm going with that way of thinking, like, okay, like, you're my person, and now I'm bonded to you for life. Like, there's no way out of this. And, you know, that kind of like goes into, like, my idea of marriage. Like, I have a very, like, my brother, oh man, you know, before I came on this podcast, I was talking to him, and he was like, no, you can't talk about that because that's blasphemy. I'm like, okay. Like,
what is your view on marriage?
Cause again, like back to my brother, it's just, he says that when he gets married, it's for life. And again, like you made a commitment to someone. Yeah, I get that. But he's that way of thinking. Like he tells me like, oh, if it doesn't work out, like it doesn't matter because I'm stuck with that person. And it's like, bro, like why? Like, I mean, I get it why you're thinking that, but if you're not working towards something and not working to overcome something, you're just in it for the sake of being in it and saying, okay, I made it this far with this person. We've been together for 50 years. I think that you're wasting your life and that other person's life and the opportunity to find love. So
you feel like in marriage, like you can't just have them. So you're worried about the mentality in the marriage. So like you can't be like, okay, I'm stuck with this person. It is what it is. But more so like we're doing life together. Like, because I feel like if you're married to somebody, right, like you have decided, you've made a decision to commit to that person, right? Yeah. For better or worse, right?
Yes. And what I'm saying, like, again, like I believe in marriage and like when you're with someone, like you're with someone and you make that commitment, but it's like going like I'm telling, like my brother's telling me, like it doesn't matter if it doesn't work because you're not even making an effort to make it work, because you can make it work in any relationship, I think, but you both have to be willing. So I'm just saying, like, for the sake of we did marriage the right way of staying by each other for better or for worse, even if we're not, you know, like we're not, we're not being good to one another. I think that's where the problem is. And that was, again, going back to like my mindset of how relationships had to be. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter because, you know, I have to work through this. But if you both aren't working towards something, then that's where the problem is. You know what I'm saying?
Like, of course. Like if it gets to a point where like, okay, like one is, you know, one person is trying, the other person is not, you know, it's a
men. It's men.
Whoa.
No. I'm saying that like, I feel like as women, when we have a problem in our relationship, we go to friends, we're asking, like we're outsourcing other advice. We're the ones talking. Again, this is, you know, I'm speaking generally, like obviously there's probably men out there, but I feel like the majority is probably women that we're more focused on having, a better relationship. So,
I feel like if a man wants to, man will. You know, that's the thing about men. When we really want to, we will, and you'll see that evidently.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, and it's very evident. And as a man, you know, if a man is not interested, he will show it. You know, it will reveal itself. So it's one thing too, like when a man gets to a point that, you know, let me say it like this. In a relationship, sometimes when a woman has a problem, right? And when she has an issue in the relationship and she brings it to the guy, right? She's like, oh, okay, this is that, whatever. The guy is like, oh, okay, dang. Like he assesses the issue. But you know what most women do? They literally put the relationship in jeopardy. Like, yo, you're going to fix this situation or else. Right? No,
the
seriously.
ultimatum.
Yeah, they put. Oh,
like, that was the name of the show, The Ultimatum. That was the show.
Yeah. It was. Everything comes full circle. So, like, when women have an issue, they say it to men, right?
It wasn't the show.
Okay. So they come to men like, okay, this is my problem, this is my issue, and like fix it or else, you know, like the relationship is in jeopardy, right? They threaten the relationship. But when a man has an issue and he has a problem and he brings it to his lady, in reverse, usually, and I'm speaking for men in general, like usually it's like, oh, like just suck it up, you're a guy, you know, deal with it, you know.
Look,
kind
you're
of thing.
saying that, and like, I couldn't absolutely relate to anything like less, honestly, to what you're saying. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I see what you're talking about. Like women, we're like, you know, you have to deal with us, but we're here to fix you, but I'm perfect type stuff. Yeah.
No, not even that. It's just in lamest terms, right? It's kind of like sometimes when a guy has an issue, right, he puts it on his back and he deals with it, right? And like sometimes when a woman has it, like maybe it's because women are more expressive. I would have to let me put it that way. Maybe it's because women are more expressive. So when you guys have an issue in a relationship, you say it like it is. You vent it. You let us know. And to men, maybe sometimes it might be overwhelming because we're like, oh, just had one yesterday. I just had an issue yesterday. That was you know what I'm saying? So it's like you guys are very expressive. And as men, it's kind of like, all right, it's not a big deal. Unless it's like a really big deal, then we bring it up. But like we're kind of like just like, okay, like it's
Okay,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's what I'm trying. In layman's terms, that's what I mean. And I'm not speaking for all, but majority. That's what I'm speaking
No.
for,
I think that it can apply to like many relationships where people are going and thinking like you're the person that they're with is the only one who has flaws, because we're seeing it, how it's affecting us, but it's like really hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, like admitting, taking accountability for one's actions and be like, okay, you know what, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Again, because when we are like more expressive and we can communicate more effectively,
Yeah.
I think.
And all men are not like, most men don't have a hard time communicating, right? Mm-hmm. And like for me and in my relationship, I told my lady, I was like, do you think I communicate well with you? And she was like, yeah, you don't have a problem expressing yourself. And that's not all men. Mm-hmm. All men can't really express themselves when they feel some type of way or going through something. They don't feel the need sometimes to come to their woman and talk to or express, right? Mm-hmm. They rather go to their boys, but like me, like that's something I worked out early in my relationship, to talk to Andrea, to speak to her, be like, this what's going on. And I feel like communication is a big thing.
Communication is key.
Huge.
I was definitely going to bring that up, but like relationship advice, because like you said, like men, it's hard for them to communicate effectively where, they're expressing themselves in a way that their partner can understand, right? So if you're not communicating effectively and we're not understanding one another, it's really, you can harbor resentment because it's like, I'm telling you something and you're not even listening to what I'm saying. You don't even care.
There's a big difference too. Like there's one thing to listen, but are you hearing?
Yeah.
Like you can listen to somebody all day, but are you hearing that person? Are you really taking in what they're saying to you? Because if you did, things would be different. And at times that's the problem, right? We listen to respond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not like, okay, like you just said that, I'm going to now take what you said and reflect and see how I can do better. Because, when I'm saying like women, because we're better communicating, I'm someone, when I have a problem, I'm like, you did this, this, and this. You could fix it by doing this, this, and this type. I give them the answers. It's like,
that's so tough though. That's so tough because you're giving them the answer in a way that this is how I feel like you should fix it, right? But like that individual might be like, yo, like maybe there's a deeper underlying issue and they're like, yo, it's not that easy for me to like fix it the way you have told me to fix it, right? I see that's like that like clashes because it's like I feel like women not my lady, baby, I love you. Women are just like they just try to like, sometimes like this is how you should do it. I have a layout, and that's women too because women are creators, right? You guys love to fix things.
I hate that. Oh my gosh.
But it's in your nature. Like you guys are nurturers, right? Natural nurturers. So you love to nurture things and make it grow and fix stuff. So
man,
it's natural.
The reason I had like that epic response to what you were saying about like fix things, because it really like makes me really upset. Like when my friends come to me and they're telling me like this, down, and third about their partner, I'm like, girl, what made you think that you need to come? Like, yes, like you're saying, like naturally, that's what we do naturally. Like we want to fix something, but it's like, man, you're not a rehab for broken men. Like,
Yeah, no.
It's nothing to do with what you just said. It's just like, oh, that thought fix, man. It just, it hits a chord with me.
and not even just like fixing men. Like I just feel like if you guys are nurturers.
I know exactly what you were saying. It was just it was a separate thought. Yeah.
But so your friend came to you and she was like,
no, it's just like in general, it's like women, we think that we see a lot of potential in men at times. We're like, okay, this is, we're not taking them for who they are.
What you're saying.
We're like, okay, this is their potential, the possibility. I can make them into something. I'm like, girl, this is who they are, like, men, as like you said, like if they want to do something, they will. If they want to change because they want to change, they'll do it themselves. And I feel like that's like a problem that women have in relationships, where we go in thinking I'm gonna fix this person and kind of make them the way that is right for me.
Fit for me.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's just again another like tip. I'm not someone like I don't feel like I'm even someone who's like allowed to give advice to someone, because I'm not like, what am I? I'm a single mom, and I'm just dating somebody. I'm not married, So it's like when people are asking for advice, they're looking for something like, oh, I want a lifestyle like you. So I'm telling you how not to do it is basically where I'm coming from, not like a place of like, oh, you know what? I got everything figured out.
No, because we don't, and that's the reality of it, and we can go all day talking about this, and there's going to be podcasts about this, and that's going to be exciting.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. That's
subscribe.
Yes, I want to put the little motion thing. Okay, but yeah, like I said, we could go all day, but I do want to talk to you when we come back about, being a single mom, right? And, growing up with divorced parents, how that was like. So we'll be back. Okay, so how was it like, growing up with divorced parents?
Well, my parents got divorced when I was like 14 years old, but my dad got incarcerated when I turned 11, so it was kind of like I got used to not having him as well. So like my mom would go visit him, and I'm like, I was mad at him at the time, like throughout his whole entire time like being in jail, like I didn't really want to have a relationship with him. So like my parents splitting up wasn't something that like really affected me until my mom started dating, because I was like, wait a minute, like what's happening?
Who is this guy?
Yeah, so again, like I was used to like not kind of having my dad, like I just I grew up with a single mom technically. Yeah. So when my mom started dating, it was really hard for me. Like out of all my siblings, like my brother, they're like cool. They're like, okay, like as long as my mom's happy. And for me, it was like, no, this isn't gonna fly, because I kind of developed this role of like my dad's protector. There's always like that one kid. It's like, oh, my dad's gonna be back type. So I was that kid. Like,
are you the oldest? You said you have 5 siblings.
No. I'm the second. So it's like my sister, then me, then my brother, and then 2 little sisters.
Okay.
Yeah. So I took on that role of like, no, like I have to like defend my dad. It's like, you're here, you're trying to take my dad's place. Like, who are you? What do you want with my mom? Type stuff. So, cause I remember, cause they met each other through work. That he like I just thought of him as like one of my mom's friends, because all my mom's friends, like they would come over, I would babysit their kids. It's like like we're good, like you're just another one of her friends. But it wasn't until I don't remember the exact timeline, but like we were at the park and like he was playing baseball with us, and it clicked in my head. I was like, you like my mom. And then I gathered all my little sisters, because like I said, my older sister and my brother, they don't care. They're like, all right, like it's her life. But like my sisters, I was like, listen, he's trying to take the place of our dad. We need to stop this. Put this halt. So, and that's kind of like the same relationship like I kind of have with him to this day. Kind of. Not so much like I've accepted him as like, my mom's fiance. Like this is the person that my mom wants to have her life with. But it was really hard for me because, again, like it's hard to surrender that role. Like this is a part that I played for so long, like of being, like my dad's protector. And I don't know, that sounds kind of weird. But yeah, no. So it was that like I didn't want to, like if he was somewhere, like he was going to family stuff, I'm like, I'm not going because he's there. Because I remember this one time for Thanksgiving, he had come over to my grandmother's house, and my mom was like, "Oh, Alfredo's gonna pick you up. Be ready." And I'm like,
"What?" Your dad or the?
This is my mom's fiance. So
the one that was trying to take your dad's place.
Yeah, not really, but yeah, like
okay.
He's just, that's how kids we see it, right? It's like, right. Oh, you're not my dad type stuff. Yeah, so she's like, oh, he's gonna go pick you up, and I'm like, what is he gonna pick me up for? Like, and he's like, oh, to take you to grandma's house for Thanksgiving. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going. And my mom, as a kid, the way that I saw it, it was like she was choosing a man over me. That's really how I saw it. I was like, oh, because what ended up happening, I said I wasn't going to go if he was there. And she was like, all right, whatever. So I didn't have Thanksgiving, like, and I just remember, like, with my family, and I just was, like, so upset because, again, like, I was over here thinking, like, okay, my mom's betraying my dad. But it wasn't more so that because I had already accepted that, like, my mom and dad were not together anymore. Right. It was just, you know, something new for me. It was like, oh, man, my mom, why is she dating? Like, so especially now being a single mom, like, I'm trying to, I like, again, now that I'm in somebody's shoes, like I said earlier, like, it's really hard to put yourself in somebody's shoes. And now that I'm in those shoes, it is, again, like, I don't think I'll have the same experience just because, you know, if my boyfriend and we end up, like, getting married, like, my son would have, like, he would have known him his whole life. So it's nothing new. Like, for me, it was, like, letting go of, like, oh, shoot, now my family's never going to come back together. So, yeah, so hopefully my son never feels that type of way of, like, oh, that I've ever picked someone over him. Right. But I know now that that's not what my mom was doing. She, you know, she had every right to move on. And, you know, like, the same way that I didn't, like, when I started to get into the dating world, I realized, okay, there's no reason for me to have to disconnect, you know, like, I can separate the two. Like, I can be a mom and I can be a woman. Like, those are two different things. Right. And now I, like, give my mom more grace now when it comes to that. It's like, okay, like, I didn't understand. But again, like, it wasn't, like, my mom, like, you know, we were talking about earlier, like, women were better communicating. My mom is, like, very shy. Like, I'm somebody, like, outgoing. I say what no filter. Because I say things to this day that, you know, rub my family kind of, like, the wrong way. But I mean, sorry, not sorry type stuff. Because it's how I felt. And, like, my mom, I don't know if it's because of the way that she grew up. So there was never that conversation, you know? Yeah. So it wasn't like, okay, you know what? I still love you. You know, I was thinking more so, like, again, like, trying to put myself back into, like, the shoes of how I felt, like, in that moment, like, a little teenager. It was like, all right, you know, now this person is going to, like, you know, she already forgot about my dad. Now she's going to forget about me because now, you know, your partner is your partner. And, you know, this is the way that I thought as a kid. You know, it's not.
You were what, 12?
I was a little older when I don't know the exact timeline. So yeah, I was old enough to know that that's not how that really worked. Yeah. But it was more so kind of like, I always had this, like, headbutting relationship with my mom, because somebody has to, right? If out of 5 kids, we couldn't have all made it easy for her. So I was just always the one, like, again, it was that role that I developed, you know, like, so it was like, all right, you know, I'm the rebellion one. I'm the I'm the one with no filter saying things how it is. So it's like, all right, if I'm that person, I need to speak for, you know, be the little devil's advocate kind of sort of. So yeah, so definitely growing up with divorced parents wasn't as hard until, you know, my mom got into the dating scene. So yeah, but I have 2 sets of step parents technically, because my dad is married, but I don't have a relationship with his wife at all, just because, you know, the way that it is, like, both, like, I have, like, polar opposite step parents. I have one, like, my mom's partner, who's, like, someone who, like, tries, and, like, you know, like, those people who try too hard, it's like, you, like, put me off. Oh, and the other one doesn't try at all. So it's like, damn, we couldn't have had a balance between the both of you. So
I see.
But yeah, no, just like, as a kid, I can't imagine, like, if I was, like, still kind of dating and, you know, like, this relationship doesn't work for me, then, you know, like, moving on, like, I would probably approach it way differently, because, you know, my son would be older. He's 1 now. He's still young, but I would be more hesitant to introduce, like, the next person, because it's like, all right, you know what, I had another failed relationship. I don't want to involve my child. I don't know when exactly I would feel comfortable introducing somebody else to my son, you know, if I already had a failed relationship, but hopefully not. Yeah. So it gets really hard. So definitely for parents, like your friend that is dating and he has his child's older, it gets complicated as your kids start forming ideas. You know, I have a blank slate right now. Right. So, like, the same way that I was, like, my father's protector, you know, the kids, they're gonna develop something that, you know, and, you know, not all kids probably, but who knows, just to be on the safe side, you'd like to look at, like, the different possibilities. Right now, that's not my case, so when it happens, I'll cross that bridge when I get there, is kind of like my style of thinking. It's like, why make, this is like a Spanish phrase, so I don't know if they say it in English, but, like, make a hurricane in a glass of water. Have
It
you ever
probably
heard?
sounds a lot better in Spanish.
Yeah, un tormento de agua. Yeah, like, so it's just like, again, like, I'm not thinking of like the problems ahead, because there'll be problems ahead, and like, you know,
Yeah,
as a
you gotta
woman,
take it one step at a time.
yeah,
Take
exactly.
it one step at a time.
Because then you'll stress yourself out. And honestly, like, trying to live a stress-free life. That's why I didn't want to date anyways. Because guys, you guys are kind of stressful sometimes. So I was like, you know what?
I can't wait for this other podcast.
Let me save these gray hairs. Like, there's no reason I need to be getting gray and stressed out for nobody. So,
So now, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you though, how did you see God's hand in everything from the journey of, you know, little man, you know, being born and, you know, having to go through the journey as a single mom. And then now, you know, you found somebody and all of that, you know, where you're at right now. How have you seen God's hand in your life?
all right. So in any good story, you got to tell it from the beginning, right?
Okay.
So I grew up in the church per se. Like, I was born Catholic.
Yeah.
I went to Catholic schools like my whole life until middle school. So, you know, religion, Christianity, that's always kind of been like very prevalent in my life. But I don't know. I never felt connected to God. Like, I would learn, and then people, like, I would ask questions because I was always that kid. I'm like, oh, but like, how do you know? Like,
Right.
why? And nobody gave me like a good enough answer. Like, so I guess I was like not really a believer. I was like, okay, I was born into this, like the same way you're saying like earlier about like somebody not being born in religion.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like I was born into it. So I was like, oh, I have to believe because this is, you know, like I have to believe. And that wasn't a good enough answer for me. So, you know, I would see my friends, like I had like my best friend growing up, she was like Christian, and I could just tell how much she loved God. And I just remember feeling really jealous that she had, you know, like that love for God, because, you know, like once you have that, you know, everybody in life, you know, you want to make sense of like why we're here. Everybody, no matter what, like if you're atheist or not, like you're gonna think of science, you're gonna think of, oh, like the universe, da da da.
Yeah,
Like
your
everybody,
mind is you're gonna
yeah,
think
yeah.
of
You want to think in something bigger than yourself, right? So I just kind of felt lost, like not having any of that. It's like, oh man, like
from seeing her.
yeah, because
Yeah.
just in life, like how like there was people that were so devout to God and or in anything that they believed in. Like I was kind of like that kid on the fence about everything. So for me, it was just having that uncertainty and like, oh man, like when I die, like is it over? And like it was never like something that I felt at peace with, knowing that like, I don't know, and it was really hard for me to surrender and like just leave it at that, like, oh, I don't know, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went through a lot of different like ups and downs in my faith. Like when I was in middle school, high school, I had like my closest friend, she considered herself not an atheist and an agnostic. That's somebody who neither they don't believe or that they don't believe, they just don't really have an opinion. So I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense for me too. So, you know, I was like, all right, this is kind of who I am. You know, I'm not somebody who believes and don't believe, but I always wanted to. Like, I loved going to church. I loved listening to music, like the hymns. Oh my gosh, like it's my happy time. I still listen to Christian music like all the time. Like it makes my soul at peace. But it wasn't until, you know, having my son that I really experienced what it was like to, you know, I don't know how to put this in words really.
Go as best as you can.
It's just, I was kind of looking for a sign from God or someone, be like, let me know that like there's something more. Cause again, I didn't know like what life, like what was it like after. So for me, it was that sign. I was like, okay, now, like, I know, and now I feel good. It's like, oh, man, I'm one of those people. Like, when I hear you talk about, like, Jesus, like, your face just lights up. Like, your love for God is so contagious, Jesus. I just, like, oh, man,
Praise
like,
God.
want to
Thank
be
God for
someone
that.
like that. But, again, like, going back, it was until, you know, I got pregnant with my son. Because, like we said earlier, I'm in the Army, and routine for Army is they shoot you up with shots. November time for me was like, all right, they're gonna give me like $1 million.
That scared me. That sentence scared me. I was like, wait, what?
No,
I had
like
to process-
like
yeah,
vaccinations.
Yeah, right.
So like all day, like I remember this, like it's so important for my story. Like it was like the beginning of November. I was, you know, doing drills. You know, I have to go get my vaccination. So it was like an all day process. So I don't remember how many vaccinations I got that day. So it was a lot, because imagine, like, it was like a whole day's work of vaccinations.
Right.
And I'm coming to like my last group of vaccinations before I'm like done for the day and like mission ready, because you need all these vaccinations to be considered mission ready, because I was part of like the detachment unit. Like if something ever happened in New York, you know, I need to make sure that everything is in check. So yeah, I'm in my last room, I'm getting my last groups of vaccination, and they give you like a little survey to look over, like little yes, no, da. And one of the questions there was, are you pregnant? And I was like, I don't know. So I put not sure, and they like gave me a pregnancy test. It came back negative. And in my heart, like something, an inner voice was telling me, don't get that shot. Don't get that shot. And I was like, what happens if you are pregnant and, you know, you get the shot? And they were telling me like, oh, your kid's gonna be born with problems, da. Like, and again, like the way that I see it now, it was the Holy Spirit protecting my son, because my son was born in August. So like November, August, like it was right around that time frame that he was probably being conceived. And the way pregnancy tests work, they're not going to tell you right away. You need to be like a few weeks along. So even though that, like usually when the government tells me, because you know that's what you are when you become a soldier, is, you know, you become property of the government, and you don't have a say. Like you get shot up because you have to. Like,
right.
What you think this is? So
that's crazy, but it's true.
Yeah, so I said, no, I'm not getting the shot. And I was like, I knew that I was going to get in trouble, but there was something telling me, don't get the shot. So I didn't get the shot, and I ended up finding 4 weeks later that I was pregnant. And I'd like, as soon as I knew that I was pregnant, like I just thought back to that moment. It's like, what if I had gotten that shot? Wow. So it just goes, like for me, like the way I see it is God was protecting me, was protecting my child. Yeah. And you see that like all throughout like the Bible. Like there's a story, like what's his name? Abraham, you know, because Abraham and Sarah, right? They're the ones who had kids when they were later, right? They were older. Yeah. And in one of the Bible stories, Abraham fathers a child of like one of the maids. And once Sarah has her child, she sends them both away. All right. So in that story, I love this story so much because it, you know, the mom, she has her child. She's like roaming the desert. There's no food, nothing. And she like asks God for help. And then she like basically says, if you trust in me, like, you know, I'm going to take care of you. So it's just that story of like, letting go and letting God, and just I'm like, I know that God got me. Like I don't need to know every step of the way, because I just know that as long as I believe in him and I have trust that he's gonna get me through it all, then I'm good. So I'm just like so happy. It's like finally I know what it's like to be on the other side. It's like yay. So it's just that love, and it goes back to like, man, like my child was the greatest blessing. I know that it wasn't part of the plan of being a single mom and none of that, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, because, you know, he brought me so much closer to the Lord, to getting to know myself better. You know, we have to go through ups and downs in life, because then we appreciate the ups, right? Yeah. So now I have somebody to celebrate when I'm on the top. So that's just the way that I see it.
I love that. Oh man, that was awesome. That was awesome. I just tuned in. I love that. So with everything that we talked about, you know. And anything that's on your heart right now that you want to say to anybody before we close out, anything that you want to say, anybody listening right now, anything that you want to say to them?
And putting me on the spot with something to say.
Anything from the heart, anything.
Ooh, let me think. Like what's really on my heart right now is, let me think. To not like, because you know what do we talk about today? We're talking about a lot of relationships, and you know, talking about relationships with yourself, with partners, with the Lord. I would really say to take a step back from everything and try to get closer to who you are. You know, knowing who you are. You know, trying to figure out where you're going is going to take you. Just you know, we all go through things in life sometimes, and you know, just trusting the process. It's really hard. Like, think about it like this. The way that I, like, really, again, like, comes back to God is, like, if I can trust in a man and being faithful and all this stuff, why can I not believe in God? Because, like, come on now. Like, trusting, you can't, it's it's not something that you can like be sure of. You just have to have it and let go. So just like letting go as well. So again, instead of focusing all that energy into a relationship, focus that on you, man. Like, girl, person, like, do your thing. Like, take a step back. Like, really, you're gonna be so much more magnetic. You know, because now you have something more to offer to someone. You're sure of who you are.
Right.
And again, like, even turn to God. Like, for me, even though I wasn't Christian or didn't feel that connection, it was the music. There's so many other ways of praising God. It's not like, oh shoot, you know, Christians, you know, like my brother talking about blasphemy because I was telling him something. It's like, yeah, you, because he was saying something like, oh, you can't define, like, God is God and you putting your own spin on things. I was like, that doesn't really resonate with me. So yeah, you know, just finding certain things in life that make you happy and bring you closer to the Lord. Like, again, that singing God, that makes God happy. So just connecting with who you are and stuff like that. And that's pretty much what I have to say to whoever's listening. And don't forget to subscribe.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Kiara.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Yeah. I appreciate you. Thank you guys for listening. And remember, she said subscribe. I'll put that right there. Don't forget. See you guys. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you subscribe for future episodes and feel free to rate and review. For more information and ways to support, check out our website at abreathwithbrefo.com.